Hey, everybody, and welcome on now to another edition of the Living Deadwax podcast. I am your host, Ty, joined by my co-host, co-moderator, Tyler. Tyler chose tonight's topic, so I'll let him introduce it. And also, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great, brother. High of the week every week. Good to sit here, and especially my weeks when we talk about stuff that I choose because I just have better
Hmm.
episodes. So as has been
Yeah.
documented over the last whatever. I'm not gonna say which ones they are, but just
Okay.
you'll notice.
Oh,
Just
okay.
kidding. All of our episodes are great, but this week I chose because we did debuts. I believe is our first episode.
It was, yes, correct.
Okay, so makes sense, right? Our second, we could have just kept that going for a while, right? Our favorite fifth records of a band, whatever, right? And so we're some month in, we're still doing favorite number of records. Hilarious. Okay, funny to me at least. Anyway, so we did favorite sophomore records. So the second record from your favorite band and some of your highlights therein. I'm always curious to hear about that stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic. Before we get into it, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell, comment down below what are some of your favorite sophomore albums. We'd love to hear from you. Any and all support helps grow the channel. We're growing a small but mighty community here, day by day, video by video. Living Deadwax Podcast Nation will arrive. We are the best new podcast going today.
The LDW.
That does not roll off the tongue at all. The
Yeah, not at
Lowo, the Lidwa.
all. Lidwa. All right.
Anyways, guys, yeah, sophomore albums. I think it's a little bit more fun topic than debuts. I think debuts, like we talked about the end of last week's episode, kind of overdone.
Oh yeah.
Sophomore less so. And then I tried to, I don't know, we'll talk about your kind of reasoning for what you picked here too, but I tried to pick albums that from bands A, we haven't talked about ad nauseum.
Mhm.
B, albums that like are either way better than the debut or like better than the debut.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where
I
my
got
head was at. I don't know about you, but
samesies. For the most
cool.
part, samesies. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, for the most part, there's a lot where it's like, okay, it's just gonna have to be on the list. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I think we're gonna do honorables first, kind of mix it up here. So if you just want to run through all your honorable mentions,
Okay.
and then I'll do all
So
my honorables, and then we'll start doing the back and forth.
fair enough. All right. So because I've talked about these at nauseum, I don't want to do that anymore. So just honorable mentions here. Honor for Sleep. What to Do When You're Dead. I've talked about the record on here at least 5 or 6 times. So that's my favorite Honor for Sleep record. Much better than the original. Though the first record. The first record though is really good. So if you're a fan of the early 2000s, mid 2000s emo, stuff, there you go. Honor for Sleep. I also the format Dog Problems. I've talked about that at least 3 or 4 times on here. The format Dog Problems, also better than the debut. More grandiose. Nate Roos from Fun, his first band, with Sam Means, Arizona band, local band. Check it out. And then I also had, all right, Pinkerton. Pinkerton, also my favorite Weezer record, is second record, so I did not pull that, but I've talked about that before on here. So for my money, better than Blue Album, but it is what it is. Blue Album also
Wow.
is a classic. I love Blue Album as well. But yeah, so did not pull Blue Album. And
Pinkerton, you mean?
last one, or yeah, sorry, Pinkerton. The last one on here, Say Anything in Defense of the Genre. That I've talked about numerous times on here before as well. I would choose that over Is a Real Boy, which I'm considering the first record. I don't care what any Say Anything fans say. I'm not counting baseball. I don't give a shit. We're not counting it. Even though you like baseball, I don't care. We're not doing it. So in defense, there we go. So and then also brand new Deja Tendu. That was the big one. So I did not pull Deja. I've had Deja on here multiple times, but brand new Deja Tendu. I was going to save it for the end. That's why I did that. One of my favorite records of all time. One of my favorite bands of all time. Much better than Your Favorite Weapon, the first record, and probably one neck and neck for the classics of the discography. Though every record has its loyal cultish fan base, but there you go, honorables.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I'm surprised Pinkerton didn't make your list, actually, but
Gotta make
because
some
I don't
tough,
think
tough
you've, I don't
choice
think,
here.
I don't think you've talked about Pinkerton as much as you've talked about those other albums. So there you go.
That's fair. That might
Anyway.
be true. That might be true.
Anyways, I did the pleasure of pulling my honorables that we'd have show and tell. So,
Okay.
first one, Emperor, Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk. Yeah, really good fucking album. Follow up to In the Night Side Eclipse. This didn't make the list because I like In the Night Side Eclipse is the fucking just a banger. It's really a banger of an album, and this is really good though too. But to me, they're kind of like 1A, 1B. So I tried to like do albums that were leaps. Cool pressing. It's 45 RPM.
Ooh,
Mixed at Abbey Road Studios. So cool, like
money,
white and kind of brown splatter. So it's very cool.
super white too. That's crazy.
Yeah. So Emperor, Norwegian black metal band.
Boom.
And an album that was really tough not to just put on my main list. It's one of my favorite albums of all time, but it's something we have talked about before. Alice in Chains with Dirt. One of these seminal 90s albums, just an absolute classic banger of an album. So many singles. This is the 30th anniversary repress that came out last year. It's already feels like time's just flying, man, because I feel like it was yesterday, and I think this came out like 7 or 8 months ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Alice Chains with Dirt, just a classic seminal album with all the tracks that everybody loves. Though I really like Facelift though too, so probably not as much. I think Dirt's a better album, top to bottom, but Facelift's really good though too.
Yeah.
And one that I do enjoy, but I wanted to put it on an honorable, but it didn't crack the list. The Cult with Love. I wanted to talk about this real quick because it's just so much better than Dreamtime, the debut. Like it's really leaps and bounds ahead of their first album. And the Cult, really cool band, hard bluesy rock with a gothic influence. Just really cool. This has, big songs. She Sells Sanctuary, Revolution, Rain. Those are like the big songs. Some GTA cuts on there. I think Rain was a GTA song. Maybe San Andreas. And She Sells Sanctuary is in Gran Turismo 4, I think. No, 2, I think.
Is it
2 or
really?
3. Yeah. It could be.
I want to say
it
something too, because I had to and I don't remember it.
Man, it might be 3 or 4 then. I think it's a PS2 one, actually. It's probably
Fair.
3 or 4. But The Cult with Love. Great album. Really cool. I think they get better as they go. Like the next 2 records, I think, are stronger. But this is a really good album and way better than the debut.
Boom.
And let's see here. A record that we've talked about quite a bit. Megadeth, Peace Sells, but who's buying leaps and bounds better than Killing Is My Business, just trounces it in absolutely every way. Production, songwriting, soloing, riff writing, everything. Classic album, and one we've talked about quite a bit, so I didn't want to riff on about Megadeth too long tonight. Had to at least mention it. One of my all-time favorite albums, and one we've talked about quite a bit. I'm not going to talk about it too much. Watch the Metallica ranking. Metallica, Ride the Lightning. For me, it's leaps and bounds as well, better than the debut. This is when Metallica really started their sound, the production on this, that Fleming Rasmussen does along with Metallica. Like this sound with the Master of Puppets sound, they're unequaled to me. So unequaled that, listening to 72 Seasons songs done through that production technique and that guitar tone, like it makes this song sound so much better. Yeah. So, but yeah, Metallica, Ride the Lightning. I don't know. This might show up on Tyler's list, but had to throw it.
I did omit some metal stuff that I thought you might pull. I also did not mention honorable because I was like, maybe I don't know if he did rank it, so I was gonna hold it till the end.
Gotcha. And then let's see here. I'm gonna do this as an honorable. I guess it sucks, but the Rainbow Rising. To me, it's kind of hard to do this as honorable because I just got some other records I want to talk about more tonight. But Rainbow Rising to me is one of the best pieces of music ever laid down to tape. Like it literally is one of the best lineups ever put together. And the thing that kind of held it back for me is I really like the debut, where a lot of people don't. Like a lot of people love this album and hold it in such high regard compared to the debut album. But I like the debut quite a bit. The thing is, this is a totally different band. Richie basically kicked out everybody but Ronnie, and Cozy and Jimmy Bain came in, and that changed the whole sound. And what they laid down is classic. Everybody should have to listen to Stargazer, like that's required listening. So Rainbow Rising had to make at least the short list of honorables. So there we go.
Love it.
Also, Martin Birch, just one of the greatest producers of all time, did all those records, did Whitesnake records, did every classic Maiden record. Like that dude. If we ever do producers, he will definitely be probably number one for me. So
100%. He did a lot of heavy hitter records, but that's crazy.
No, tons of them.
I'm surprised it didn't make your list, but here we are. I'm more curious as to what we're doing here. But
yeah,
love it. All right.
Go ahead, kick it off with your first choice.
All right. So I'm going to. It's a band I don't think I've ever mentioned on here, which is crazy, considering what a big deal they were in my life for a good handful of years there. So anyway, when I think of my more early 2000s, mid 2000s emo, pop punk, whatever community records, and I was thinking back about this, there was one big Sophomore record that I couldn't not mention. The biggest band in the genre, still to this day right now, selling out arenas, My Chemical Romance, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. So 2004, they had I Brought You My Bullets, Brought Me Your Heart, Brought Me the first record, and I didn't even know that record existed. I only knew this record obviously because it was massive at the time, and Fuse had the making the video kind of segment. They showcased them on multiple different episodes of shows for live performances and stuff. And they really made you aware of I'm Not Okay, which is the first single. And I became obsessed at that point. And I got the record, I got the CD, played it over and over and over and over again while I chatted with girls that didn't like me on AIM. And so I would just have it on my boombox, just on repeat. And I still, to this day, I know every ting and bang and breath on the record. For my money, if I'm doing this again, like I had to re-listen to favorite songs, I always like Give 'Em Hell Kid. That song was awesome. The Jet Set Life Is Gonna Kill You, another cool song. Thank You for Venom, Hang 'Em High. I Never Told You What I Do for a Living, also really cool song on here. And then obviously all the singles, are classics. But it's a cool record, front to back, top to bottom, and there's a reason why it's a classic. So there you go, My Chemical Romance, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
Yeah, that's a massive album. You couldn't avoid, even if you weren't into any of that music, you couldn't avoid hearing some of that, or people wearing those shirts. If you were in middle school or high school when that thing dropped, like, dear Lord, yeah. So, I mean, I was too. I was there too. So yeah, I wasn't, that wasn't my music, but it was hard you couldn't avoid it. So, even I know the cultural impact of that. So
they became a live band. Like, it's really interesting to me, like, because not every band is a live band. Not every band comes off that way, and the fans don't take them that way. So there's only a handful of bands, especially from that era, that like people wore their shirts every day. They had their entire fashion choice dedicated to it. Like that was a thing. It was definitely a movement of time, and that was one of the last ones. Like them and Fall Out Boy was another one, and they kind of were just the last life bands, really. At least in my my prime here. Green Day was another one. Early or late stage Green Day, American Idiot Green Day was another one.
Yeah, very true.
Crazy.
Very true. We did have a lot of those seminal albums. Like that was, I don't know if that happens anymore. Be really interesting. So be really interesting.
I mean, we don't have perceptions that way at this point anymore, right? So like I
No, we
couldn't
don't.
tell you that.
I think we're too old, but like we have like nephews that are around our age when that record came out or close to it, and like I don't think they have a record that's like maybe they're not as into music as we are, but
Yeah.
like
Well,
I know when that record came out just because I wasn't even in. I don't care about My Chemical literally at all.
yeah, yeah,
But like
yeah,
I remember seeing those shirts, seeing those videos, like hearing those songs. You couldn't avoid it. Like
yeah.
I don't know if that exists anymore. Really, just interesting to
If
think
we're
about.
if we're talking about like life or like not life, but like big records like that, like seminal, iconic records, they don't really exist anymore because kids don't take in music that way. They take in
Yeah.
music, especially if you're into hip hop and stuff, for the most part. Obviously, there's a handful and a half of diehard hip
TikTok.
hop heads. Yeah, true. TikTok, the TikTokization of music, but there's a
Mhm.
handful of hip hop heads that will love a lot of different artists, whole records, whatever, right? But for the vast majority of people, they take the singles in and maybe a handful of songs otherwise, possibly, maybe, but they don't have perceptions like that. So I imagine without talking to our nephews, I would imagine they have the exact same thing. Like they love certain people, but they love them for the 7 songs they know. They don't feel inclined to go deeper than that, and they don't really take in music that way, I don't think, anymore, for the most part. Like,
Interesting.
could be totally
Yeah.
wrong, but that's what it kind of seems like to me. The TikTokization.
Yeah. 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 It's could be a good topic for another day, maybe. Um.
Yeah,
All right. I'm gonna go with a giant album to kick it off. Black
yeah,
Sabbath.
yep.
Paranoid. You know, September 1970, Warner Bros. Vertigo. They started doing this like 4 months after the debut came out. The debut is a good record, but it's still a lot of blues rock. Really, the only really seminal track to me is the title track. The Wizard is a cool song too, but like to me, it's not really Black Sabbath. It's more like with the harmonica and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
The tone and
where in
tenor
this,
is among just the Black Sabbath title track.
100%. When this came out, every track is Black Sabbath. Like to me, this is when kind of Black Sabbath started refining that sound and becoming Black Sabbath. And it's crazy to see the jump that they made in just the handful of months.
Yeah.
They started doing this 4 months after the debut. So like they almost sound not like a completely different band, but it's just way heavier, heavier topics. Just so many classic tracks. Just
Yeah.
absolutely filled. War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Iron Man. That's side one.
That's just one side.
Yeah. Side two, Electric Funeral, great song. Hand of Doom, that's my favorite track on here. Really dark song, but Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, Fairies Wear Boots. Fairies Wear Boots, classic too. Yeah, this is when Black Sabbath became Black Sabbath to me. So had to be on the list because I think it is just such a classic record and it is so much better than that debut. It was like one of the first ones I thought of. So there you go. Black Sabbath with 1970s Paranoid.
Love it. All right. So I'm going to keep on with the heavy, heavy, heavy hitter mid 2000s pop punk emo stuff. And shout out to my former or my current elder emos. But a massive, massive record. Riot by Paramore. I've never talked about Paramore on this channel, but I
No.
love the first 3 Paramore records. Like the new stuff's cool too, or the newer records. And by newer, I mean the last 10 years. This is a lot older than that records. But like, it's just for my money. This is like where I still have all the nostalgia for. I still think about these songs. I'll play these songs. They have, I think, 4 or 5 singles off this record. And for the most part, every one of these songs is an absolute live set classic that people want to hear again. I remember Paramore, the first record. It's while it made an impact, it definitely was not a small record. It did not do what this one did. That one was the hype record. This one was everywhere. This is another life band. Girls dedicated
Wow.
their entire look to how Halo Looms looked. Like that was a vibe for a good 2-3 years there in high school, middle school, right? And you just couldn't avoid it. Like Crush, Crush, Crush. That is still my favorite Paramore song. I listen to that song probably a few times a month because I just love the production on that song too. That was my ringtone on my old red flip phone way back
Nice.
when. That was my ringtone. Yeah, it was awesome. But Miracle, Born for this they got a little more serious than what the first record kind of did. It wasn't as pop punky maybe as a lot of people thought it would be. And then Hallelujah, Misery Business, obviously the massive song. And then Let the Flames Begin. And for a pessimist, I'm pretty optimistic. Those are just massive, huge songs. So just front to back, definitely a scene classic, a seminal record. I like it better than the first record, and it's still my favorite Paramore record. So there we go, getting different. Paramore's Riot.
Yeah, again, another one. What year is that?
2006, I want to say. 2007. Lied to you.
Okay.
Also, still the MySpace address back here, so I like that a lot.
Nice. Yeah, just another. Yeah, same thing as MCR. Like, whether you wanted to be around it or not, like you were, because it was that big. Yeah.
Still doing huge business too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Crazy. I mean, those two bands you mentioned still filling arenas. So yeah. I mean, good on them, man. Good on them. I'm gonna go back to my world, back into my vein, kind of sticking in the same lane here that I started out. Go with Judas Priest with Sad Wings of Destiny. To me, this is probably the best record I have on this list, and based on my criteria. The debut Judas Priest record is just not good. Rock-a-Rolla is just, it's like one of the most generic blues rock things ever. And if Judas Priest decided to do another Rock-a-Rolla, there would be no Judas Priest. We would not be talking about Judas Priest 50 years later.
Yeah.
This record is such a giant step above the debut. Like I said, the debu's generic. This is like the beginning of Judas Priest, where it becomes its entirely own thing. That's why, to me, it's the best album I'll mention tonight for those particular criteria. Maybe not my favorite, but it's one of the most important metal records of all time. All the, crazy big bands cite this record, Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, even contemporaries of Priest at the time cite this record out. It shaped the genre. It truly did. It shaped an entire genre for years, decades afterwards. Really heavy, thick production. Like Halford, some of the greatest vocal performances he's ever put to tape. Honestly, Victim of Changes, The Ripper, stellar Halford tracks. Dreamer, Deceiver, another really cool standout for me. This is a really nice reissue they did a couple years ago. Really nice embossed artwork with the angel on there. Really cool gatefold.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and this is 76, man. So like it's almost 50 years old and it's still so relevant today. I listened to it last night and it's still such a relevant record. It's not my favorite Priest. Like I like 80s Priest way more than like this mid 70s, late 70s Priest. Because I like the more bombastic, like heavy, like over the top shit.
Yeah.
But I understand when people say like they never did anything better than this. Like I get it. Because like they were really hitting on all cylinders and like they were a really hungry band that you could tell like if this doesn't work out, we're all going back to work in factories and shit.
Yeah.
And we don't, and they were basically doing that. They were doing that when this came out. Like they were doing like one meal a day. Like they basically had no per diem from the label. And yeah, they all had side jobs and shit. And this is it. So it stands out. Classic record. Highly recommend. If you've never listened to this record, Tyler, highly recommend it. It's like you got to listen to it like once in your life.
I haven't. I mean, 25-year-old Rob Halford, like that's just a whaler, brother.
Yeah,
he still does it, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think he's ever sounded better on a record. So, Like, I think the band got better as they went along, but he individually, yeah, some of the shit he's laying down there, like, listen to the Ripper, it's ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
when Tim Owens tried out for the band, when Halford left, like that's what he's saying. He's saying the Ripper, and I think he's saying Victim of Changes, and that's what like, oh, this
Wow.
that proved that okay, he can do the shit, he
He
can
could
do the Halford
because he did the
shit. Yeah.
craziest thing, so he
Yes.
can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, good choice. Yeah, I've never listened to that record. I should probably listen to that. I've never checked out a lot of the early Priest stuff. Not that I've dove in deep into the 80s stuff, but like the 70s stuff I'm pretty much completely like unaware of
Yeah.
in terms of like anything beyond whatever
Don't
songs I've heard obviously with you.
like don't listen to the first record. Start with that. Stained Class is really good too. Like they're really
Yeah.
good. I just prefer like Screaming for Vengeance, that era stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're gonna listen to one Priest record, that's probably the record to listen to. And it's crazy listening to it within like a 50-year-old lens. Like it's ridiculous because it's still really relevant. Like you still hear shit that they were doing then in albums today.
Yeah.
Like metal bands taking after, and yeah, great album, great album.
Good call, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, put them in as pioneers or whatever, visionaries or whatever. Good call. Not as
Very true.
performers. So.
Musical excellence.
Excellent. There you go. Shout out.
Yep.
All right. I'm just gonna keep going with the massive scene records because like this is what it's about, right? So another one, probably some of my most vivid memories of this time. So we're going back again to 2004. So, this record, I was still very, very, very young. I was 12, 13, and I still didn't really know all about music and stuff. But I knew there was a band that had recently changed 2 of the 4 members of the band, and that was going to be 5 members. So it was going to be a huge change, right? And the first record was big in my little bubble, and the second record going to be so different, and this and that, and whatever's going to happen, right? Oh my god. Take Back Sunday, Where You Want to Be, came out of that. So after the first record, they went on tour. Tell Your Friends, the first record, they went on tour, and Adam Lazzara was dating John Nolan's sister, the guitarist in the band. John Nolan, his sister, Michelle, and he being Adam, cheated on her on the road, I believe, is the story. And John found out about that, and he was like, him and Adam got in a fight, and he was like, I'm blowing this popsicle stand, I'm doing my own thing. And he did. And he took Sean Cooper with him, who was the bassist. So they went off and did a side project or another band called Straylight Run, which I love that first record so much as well in the demo. So good. And they brought in, here, Take It Back Sunday, they brought in a guy named Fred Mascherino from Breaking Pangea, which was another big scene band I had no idea about. But over there, it was a big deal. And so Fred comes in to play guitar. And Matt Rubano, who was a master bassist, session bassist, who played on a bunch of huge records and has played with a bunch of huge people in the studio. He went to Juilliard and did all the whole thing, and or Berkeley, and he comes into the band, most musical guy, and they write this record. And I just remember Decade Under the Influence, the first single, I do believe, and the video for that, I just remember the hype with all the little kids among us. We were all talking internet and whatever. And I remember another friend of mine named Jessie, I was over at her house and we were talking about it. And she was like, this is the first, we're going to find out what this band sounds like now. It's the first thing we're going to hear. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to be like. Decade of the Influence comes on. Boom. Breaks you into the next era of the band. A better era as an adult now, a better era. They had better run with Fred than they've ever had with John, even with the new records out there. And yeah, so anyway, Where You Want to Be, Set Faces to Stun. That's a massive song. Bonus Mosh Part 2, Decade Under Influence. Photograph is Proof, which was directed by Tom DeLonge. The video was. So there's fun fact for you. New American Classic. Up, literally, every song is just a certified banger, as the kids say. So if you're into Take Back Sunday and you've never heard this record, that's insane to me. But if you're into mid 2000s, emo pop punk, get into it and just think about the fact that all of us little kids at the time were all afraid of what our afraid band's going to sound like, and they killed it. It's a cool follow up. I love the band. Not so keen on the new stuff really, but the first 4 records, thumbs up. There you go. Take my Sunday where you want to be.
That's a cool story. I didn't know any of that, so that's interesting.
Yeah, that's the drama of the emo community.
Nice. This is funny that you're sticking in kind of the same vein, and I'm gonna keep going with my next pick. I'm gonna say in the same country, almost the same time frame. It's funny how this worked.
All right.
But, I'm gonna go with a band I haven't really talked about on the channel that I do enjoy quite a bit. They're not my favorite band. Some people absolutely love this band. They love everything they've ever done. I love quite a bit of their stuff. Sometimes it gets like if you try to listen to this band like ad nauseum, it gets kind of tiring. But I'm gonna go with Motorhead and Overkill. And the only reason I say that because a lot of Motorhead records are the same fucking record over and over again, and it's just come on, guys. But people love it, and they were good at what they did, so I understand. Overkill made the list just because the debut, the self-titled, is fine. It's just a fine, okay record, whereas this just absolutely blows it out of the water in every absolute way. Also, too, when I was re-listening to this is the nice, like 40th anniversary book here. Got some live sets in here. When I was listening to this the other day, like I would like to hear your take on this because like nothing sounds like this to me. This is 79, and nothing sounds like this in 79. It's like a blend of hard rock, blues. It's metal before metal was really a thing. It's thrashy before thrash. And you can hear like the influence from going from this to Venom to Metallica, Slayer, and so on, Megadeth, so on and so forth. A lot of people consider this their best album. I like Ace of Spades quite a bit too. That's the follow up to this, but I wouldn't argue either way, really.
Yeah,
it's the classic 3-piece lineup: Lemmy, Eddie Clark, Phil Taylor. It's the lineup everybody knows and loves. It's a great album. It's a major leap. Overkill, the title track, the opener. That song is so heavy, still so heavy, and the drums in that song are just ridiculous, and it sounds like nothing else at the time. They were such innovators. No Class is a really cool song. Listen to No Class though; it's literally the Tush riff from ZZ Top.
Nice. Okay.
It's the same exact riff. They just lift it completely. Damage Case, Metropolis, also two other really cool songs off this album. Had to make my list because it's just such a big leap from the debut, and it's such a seminal classic record. So Motorhead, Overkill, and it's only a couple years, I think. I think the debut's like 77, 76, so not too long, and then they drop this, and it just sounds like a completely different band. So also great album cover too, like
killer, really killer. No, I think the sound though is like you're saying that nobody sounds like them. It's really insane when you think about how many bands of different kinds of like heavier stuff they earmark Motorhead as an influence, but like they're so very different in like the punk, hardcore, metal communities. Everybody is kind of able to be a fan of Motorhead because they can find something in there that appeals to their root interest, right? And it's just crazy to think of how many bands kind of cited Motorhead that, maybe don't sound alike. Like while Slayer and Metallica are both thrash bands, they're very different kinds of thrash and they do not sound alike. So, just kind of, there was some crossings there. Some of the Venn diagram kind of all came over, around Motorhead.
Yeah, you're right. They're a really interesting band because you're 100% right. Like, black metal kids can like Motorhead, thrash kids, death metal kids. Like they're one of those uniting factor bands that even just hard rock guys can like Motorhead.
Yeah.
There's very few bands that do that. They are one of them, and they've influenced countless bands. You listen to that record and you hear their influence throughout decades of metal and hard rock. It's really impressive.
Yeah. FNA. Good call. All right. So let's see here. Where do I want to go? I'll carry through to one more big scene release. So okay, hold on. So this is tied up here. So just give me one second. So it's in a frame because I have it signed. So
Oh, gotcha.
I want to make sure that I mention the songs that I want to mention. There we go. Cool. All right.
Gotcha.
So another big scene release. Motion City soundtrack. Commit this to memory. This is 2005, I believe, and
Wow.
they had "I'm the Movie" come out. That's the first record. That record, it's cool. It's a cool record. It still has the same kind of sound, or whatever, but they definitely stepped up production wise on this record. Actually produced by Mark Hoppus of Blink 182 fame. He's also on the song "Hangman," which was the lyrics to "Hangman" and Mark's part especially probably appeared in no less than, I don't know, 1,000 MySpace bulletins at the time, and an infinite amount of aim away messages. I love this record. It's definitely the first big and probably the biggest Motion City record. So Everything Is All Right is the first big single off the record, and that was everywhere on Fuse and big Warped Tour songs and all that stuff. And then Make Out Kids, big song. Let's get effed up and die. It's another one. That's another huge song. Time Turned Fragile, Hangman, Hold Me Down. My personal favorite song is Hold Me Down. The video for Hold Me Down was shot in the middle of a field of snow, and the band plays, and it's just a very quiet, serene kind of video. And I enjoy that quite a bit, and I enjoy that song quite a bit. So my personal favorite is Hold Me Down. Yeah, I just remember this was definitely a happening, not as as much of a large scale as the previous records I talked about were, but for the little fringy, the kids went a little deeper. Motion City, this record, massive, massive deal. And I've seen them play it, I think, twice now, and still killing it. Met them, got it all signed, and got it signed by the replacement drummer for Tony Thaxton, which actually made me upset because going through the line, they all stood out by the merch booth, and they signed whatever you wanted to sign. It was really cool. Justin Pierre, the lead singer, he was on vocal rest, so he couldn't really talk. But everybody else, he was still standing out there, and everybody was cool. But I remember going into it because the drummer that was filling on that tour or replaced Tony, because Tony did leave the band. Anyway, he was there, and he's the old Saves the Day drummer, I believe. And I literally said, hey, man, because they're just handing stuff down the line to everybody sign stuff. I said, hey, man, is it cool if you don't sign my record? Because I'm trying to get everybody that's on the record. And he's like, no, totally. It's all good. No, man, no worries. I was all right, cool. No less than 8 seconds later, it comes down the pike, and he knows it's mine. Or I don't know if he knows, and it wasn't malicious, but it's literally mine. He goes, all right, signs it, hands it to me. All right, man, thanks for coming out. Not in a mean way, just didn't think about it. I told you 7 seconds ago, and then you did it anyway, whatever, right? So that teed me off, but whatever. Yeah. When I meet Tony Thaxton, because he's back in the band, I'll get him to sign it and get a complaint, but there you go. Motion City soundtrack, commit this to memory. Boom.
Was that the Home Depot show?
Yes, it was. Okay. Good call.
Right.
Forgot all about that being that show. Wow. I more remember the Home Depot experience than I do the actual show. And now that you said that, now I remember the show. Okay. Well, fair, but you weren't going for the show. You were going because you were going with me and you wanted to have fun, but you weren't going for the band. I was going for the band. So I should remember that more, but I can't. I remember the Home Depot exchange. So there we go. Love it. Cool.
This guy smells like the Home Depot.
It's a field. It's the field. We're on a baseball field. This girl is behind me at the concert, and me and Ty are standing together, and we both hear her say, this guy smells like the Home Depot. She's talking about the fertilizer in the field that we're in, that we're kicking up dirt and dust in the baseball field. That's what it smells like. She thought I personally smelled like that. What are we talking about? It's impossible. Okay? It's impossible. I showered. I still shower. I showered then, too. Give me a goddamn break. I did not say anything, but ever since then, Ty and I have exchanged those words to each other no less than 1 million times. So there you go.
Yeah. Everybody smelled like the Home Depot.
All right. Also, I love the Home Depot smell, so I smelled great if that was the case.
Yeah, they should bottle it. Make a lot of money.
I'd do it.
All right, I'm going to go. This is funny because I'm going to go with my last British album.
Wow, okay.
I've just been kind of going in order of years, I think. Yeah. Iron Maiden, Killers, 1981. This is a tough one for me. It almost didn't make the list because I love the debut. A lot of people don't. A lot of people think this record absolutely trounces the debut, and I disagree entirely. Yeah. I almost love the debut more. I love the punkiness, the rawness. I think it fits Paul a lot more than this album. However, I really respect this album because like Steve basically writes this whole record and he takes just a massive step forward in his songwriting ability. And I respect him for that. Like the songs are structurally better. I just think the production on the first record fits the style of the band more. This is Paul Di'Anno's last record before he was kicked out. And then it's Adrian Smith's first record too. So kind of a special. It's the only record those two appear together on. Still a really good lineup. I mean, you got Dave Murray, Paul Di'Anno, Adrian, like I mentioned, Steve, and then Clyde Burr on drums. So this is the album before Clyde Burr did Number of the Beast, and then he left the band. But yeah, I still love it. It's a really clean production. This is Martin Birch's first record with Maiden, so that's the big production shift on it. And he would go on, obviously, direct or produce all the classic Maiden stuff. And this record is really interesting though because it does show Paul Di'Anno's versatility. Like there's some balladish songs on here, and he's more than just like a punk rock singer. So I appreciate it for that too. So yeah, I mean, honestly, everything on here I love. Murders in the Rue Morgue, Genghis Khan's a really cool instrumental. Only Maiden album with 2 instrumentals. Prodigal Son, that's a cool, interesting ballad type song. Like I said, it shows Paul in a different light than you normally hear his voice. Really interesting part about this is the Ides of March is the opening song. It's the instrumental that opens the record. Okay. It's nearly, and I didn't know this until I was researching the other night, and I listened to it and I'm like, yep, it's nearly identical to Thunderburst. Thunderburst was a song that Samson released.
Oh,
if you know anything about Samson, that's Bruce Dickinson's band before he was in Maiden. Okay. The Ides of March was written in 1977. Okay. It was written during the brief time that Thunderstick, the drummer from Samson, was in Maiden. Okay.
Wow.
So basically on this, the song is only credited to Steve Harris. On the actual album that Samson put Thunderburst on, the album's called Head On. Steve Harris is credited on there.
Nice. Wow.
But Steve Harris is the only guy credited on here. So really little interesting kind of tidbit, kind of like Four Horsemen Mechanics.
Yeah.
Almost the same story, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, but a classic album. Yeah, and obviously a classic artwork. Everybody knows this artwork, whether you want to or not. Countless T-shirts and banners and posters and everything else. Rightfully so, though, man. Derek Riggs, like this era, like he was hitting his stride, and then like just banger after banger after banger after banger. So great stuff. Killers.
Love it. That's killer. Interesting. I did not know anything about that, and that's cool. That it's weird that Steve and Bruce are on a record together. They're not actually appearing on before Bruce comes into the band, obviously, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean it's an instrumental, so Bruce wouldn't be singing on it anyway.
Oh well, I guess he's on the record though. Like I guess he's obviously he sings on the record.
They're credited together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is interesting that and it's interesting that Steve just didn't feel the need to credit any of them on this, but they felt the need. I mean, he is. I mean, maybe not at that point though. Like at that point, they're kind of the same level. They're both just 2 bands coming up together in Britain. Like that's the new wave of British heavy metal. Like every band is kind of on the same level for the most part. Like I would say Maiden really that helped because that was the first time I think they toured the States. They came over here with Priest and opened for Priest. And then later the roles were reversed. So that's when the feud started. But so it did help, but like at that point, like all those bands were kind of coming up together. And then obviously Maiden took off completely when Bruce joined the band. But
have you checked out that Samson stuff?
Yeah, I've listened to a little bit of that band. They're fine.
Yeah.
It's typical like new wave British heavy metal stuff though. Like it's clear that the like why Maiden made it out of that and became bigger than everybody else. I'll just put it that way. Yeah.
That's fair. Oh. All right. Another one. got a few more here, or a good handful here actually. I'm gonna finish out my big scene releases. I'm gonna finish it out and then have others here. So another band that I've never talked about on this channel before, but they're one of my favorite bands from the time. Another killer sophomore release. So once upon a time, there was a band called The Matches, and they released a record called Decomposer. The Matches were billed from the start, like maybe not from the start, but very early in the career. They were billed as a band that was going to happen. People thought they were the band. Like whenever it clicks in with your sister, they're the band. They're the band's going to happen. So they had that hype behind them, and they're on Epitaph, and it started kind of here. The first record's just straight up pop punk, and there's cool lyrics, imageries on there, and songs and whatever. But this is when they started getting more artsy. They started getting more weird. They started getting more sounds on there, and the lyrics got a little bit better. Sean Harris really killed it on here, his vocals and stuff. Anyway, so when they put out Decomposer, Salty Eyes was a big single. That opens the record, and that opens with a child's piano, and there's I believe violin and a whole full band orchestra on there, and very different from the first record was. That's the opener of the record, and it kind of gives you a taste as what the record's gonna be like. Paper Cut Skin, another single. Clumsy Heart, another single, I believe. Diddy My Doe, You Don't Know Me, My Soft and Deep. All of these songs were definitely saved on my iPod. I couldn't afford it. Well, also I couldn't afford it, but I had limited space on there. So for the little bit of time that I did have to delete, I didn't like doing this, and I later went back on this and only had full records. But for a time where I had to conserve space, I had those songs on the iPod every time. I couldn't delete them off there. And Shoot Me in the Smile, that's another song that I believe was on an Epitaph sampler for Warped Tour, and I was obsessed with those samplers way back when. They definitely got me into bands. They worked on me for sure. The first few years I went to Warped Tour, every time I got a sampler, I listened to it every single time, and it got me into new bands. So it did work out. Everything worked at the end of the day, and it was a proper idea. But The Matches were definitely one of those bands too. That's how I got into them. The first record, they had a song on there. What is it called? I forget now the first song. Anyway, but that was a big video because it was a really cool video. They did reverse, and they front forward, or they went forward too. So like they had to do it twice basically. It was really cool. It was awesome. They had a really artsy band. So anyway, they went on and they did a third record called Abandoned Hope, and it still didn't click for them. And they put a fourth record out after they got dropped from Epitaph, and they broke up. And those were also really cool songs too. And whatever. Anyway, they didn't happen. They're still a cool band. All those records are really cool, and I'm really stoked that I own all of them. They did a limited release a few years ago, and every year or so they would put a new one out. So they finished that up a couple years ago, and these are all now hundreds of dollars, which is crazy. And yeah, so anyway, The Matches, Decomposer. If you're into the mid 2000s pop punk, artsy pop punk, whatever, listen to The Matches, and I think you'll see they did have a sound that was a little bit different than the rest of the scene did. And I think the executives weren't wrong. The people that thought they were going to happen weren't wrong. It just never did. But there you go. Decomposer by The Matches.
Are they still together?
So they broke up. I actually saw and met them like a month before they broke up. They played at the Modified, and at that point, John DeVito, their guitarist, had left, and he left about a year before, and they were touring with a guy named Dylan. And I saw them, I talked to them. I actually took them to Cooperstown in the Jetta way back when. We got in the car, and so we went to Cooperstown. I dropped them off there, which is pretty crazy. And they hooked me up with merch and stuff, whatever, and signed a bunch of stuff. And I took a bunch of pictures. It was surreal at the time, right? I was 16, I think. And anyway, they broke up, and then they've since got back together to play special shows here and there for about 4 or 5 years. They've played at least, I think, a show a year probably. They've done these reissues. They also had a documentary done about them as well called Bleeding Audio. And it's all about them and all about them not happening, basically. And the hype and everything. So I haven't seen that yet. It's on iTunes. I need to buy it. Just check it out. But yeah, so they're not together, sort of, or kind of, but they are.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a name I've heard before, but I didn't know any of that. So cool.
Yeah, crazy.
Alrighty, I'm gonna come over here, come across the pond to the old US of A. Talk about a band that dropped a little record on June 11th, 1991.
Ooh.
Uh, this album went to number 1 on the Billboard 200. It's the first album to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200 in the SoundScan era. The first album
Okay.
ever to do that.
All right, hold on.
Do you know what it is?
Is it Slave to the Grind?
It is Skid Row, Slave to the Grind.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Such a classic record. And honestly, I was like debating on this and some other albums, and I'm like, I listened to this, and I'm like, yeah, it's still really good, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, debuted at number 1. Crazy. It's the first album to ever do that, to debut at number 1.
Yeah.
So by proxy, it's the first metal album, also, or hard rock, I guess, to ever do that as well.
Take that, Pantera.
In the SoundScan era. The only other album to debut at number 1 had been Captain Fantastic, the Elton John album.
Oh wow. Yeah.
In 75. But this is in the SoundScan era particularly. It's a heavier, more inventive album than the debut. The debut is awesome. It's really good. This goes in a different direction though. It's great guitar work, good drums, good bass. The production's on it's awesome. Sebastian just wails. Like there's some songs where he's wailing, man, and his voice sounds excellent. Yeah, it's a great record, man. I would like the title track's one of my favorite songs on the album. Really heavy, really fast. Quicksand Jesus, that's a really cool song too. In a Darkened Room, that song is a great ballad. Oh, excellent ballad, man, with some great guitar work. Absolutely love that song. Really cool record. It's not a crazy long listen to. It's only like 48 minutes, which is nice. It's not like bloated because it's CD era. Yeah. It's not like over an hour long. This is the one out of the box set with the nice gatefold.
Hell yeah.
And Sebastian's dad actually did this artwork.
Wow. Okay.
That makes reading sense. That last night.
That original painting is in his living room right now. So that makes sense.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, his dad did it. And then
that's awesome.
Where is I don't know where he is. JFK is supposed to be in here somewhere.
Oh wow, okay.
I was reading that last night too. I don't know where he is though. Oh.
Easter egg.
Maybe that's him. Way over there.
Oh yeah, I guess that's what would make sense, right? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Next time you pull yours out, look at it. But this record, top to bottom's great. There's a reason it sold so well. It is way different than the debut. Like it's way heavier. There's almost like some punk songs on here too. Like there's a couple like 2-minute tracks that are just really fast and pretty heavy songs. So really interesting album. Cool record.
It introduced you to Subhuman Race pretty good. Because then it just gets heavier and crazier.
Yeah. So. Like there's a nice progression there.
Yeah. Also, I go back and forth. Like I know that people that watch this, I know that you're a lot of, Sebastian Bach haters. But I go back and forth some days when I watch old Skid Row Pro Shot videos, live videos. Sebastian is one of the best frontmen ever. Like his voice held up for so long. His mannerisms, obviously, his look, everything. Like he really did make that band. There's a reason why they've still been in business for the last 25 years since he left the band, they kicked him out or whatever, right? But there's a reason why he's still synonymous. It's because he was so good. He was so good. He was the face of the band. No one else knows anybody else. Like your sister never knew Snake Sabo, okay? Never knew Snake, okay? Apologize.
Nah.
Rachel Boland. Sorry. Yep. It also did not know you. But they knew Sebastian because he was the band. He was the look. But yeah, awesome. Very cool stuff. Love it.
No, but he, like you said, he was great too. It wasn't just because he was, a gorgeous man. Like he was actually great at his job and was a really great singer.
Yes.
Like, like I would say, like that's probably that's probably the closest in that era, like to like a Robert Plant, like for sure.
Yeah, like honestly, a little bit. Like
Yeah.
it's, I mean, that's the comparable, right? That's the comparison. Slender, blonde haired man,
But also really good. Like I'm not like
pipes.
Brett Michaels is also good looking, but like I'm
Yeah,
not
that's fair. Yeah, yeah,
putting them on the same level of singer and frontman,
yeah. No, no, no,
So
no.
or like Axel, like totally different. Whereas
Very,
Sebastian was like really talented singer
he had the
and
voice and the
also
look.
had everything. Yeah, he's a whole
Yeah,
package. Truly was.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Shout out Sabs. I know you watch, your loyal listener and watcher. Shout out.
Yep.
All right, so gonna keep it in the mid 2000s and go a little bit different with the vibes. This is gonna be Have Heart, songs to scream at the sun. I don't believe I've ever brought them up on the podcast before. There was a time where Have Heart
Yeah.
was my favorite band. In high school, the end of high school, I found hardcore. I found straight edge and I found hardcore, and I found straight edge before that, but hardcore more in high school. And this was the big straight edge band at the time, and a lot of the big hardcore kids didn't like them because they were just stupid, pussy, whatever, because they weren't beat down, bullshit, blast beat bullshit. They were very lyrical. Pat Flynn wrote amazing, great fucking lyrics, and still remember damn near every one of them for this record and the first record, The Things We Carry. Also another cool record, check out. But they went a little bit different for the follow-up. The first record is just straight up hardcore. It's straight up East Coast Boston hardcore. This went a little bit different. They're still hardcore, but they had more and different sounds coming in. They had more even-keeled songs. They are actually easygoing songs, I suppose, at least for portions of it. They incorporated a piano in the record. It's just really cool, and Pat writes a lot of personal lyrics on here, and it was gonna break them to the mainstream, if you will, of whatever the scene was, and they were the biggest band of the hardcore scene, but the biggest band, the heavy band that your sister might possibly know the name of. But they broke up after this record came out, and they announced the breakup shortly thereafter. Then they went on a 6-continent world tour, and they played forever for 9 months. Caught them here on this tour originally, and then I caught them on the farewell tour, the official farewell tour. So I don't think this record was actually out yet. So anyway, the farewell tour, I've caught both shows. Amazing, great. For my money, I still think both records, hold up, and I would recommend this band to damn near anybody. I actually loaded this band up. I loaded a lot of Have Heart up, whatever, but I loaded a lot of bands up, but I loaded Have Heart up on my nephew's iPod that I got him, and they preloaded on there. And I was like, hey, man, if you want to listen to some crazy hardcore stuff, whatever, listen to that band, because that band was one of my favorite bands, and they still are. They broke up, but they still are. And as far as I know, he never did. Standout songs for my money. Standout songs, Pave Paradise. It's all about being on the road. No Roses, No Skies. It's all about self-esteem and your outlook and what have you. Hard Bark on the Family Tree, another huge song in here. That and Boston's. A lot of this record is about Pat Flynn and getting to know his grandfather's story and what his dad went through, and he was kind of writing about that. And his grandfather was a big alcoholic and wasn't a great dude, and so he wrote a lot of the record about his grandfather. And yeah, so it's a lot of that and just a lot of family drama and whatnot. And then, unfortunately, Pat talked about his dad basically in a lot of first person. And unfortunately, later on in life, Pat's father passed away, and he made a new band called Fiddlehead. And the first 2 records they've done now have all been about Pat's father dying. And they're really cool records. They are really cool records, and they're very emotional and what have you. It's not in the same style necessarily, but it's he's a very personal guy, and he writes about what he knows. And he knew this at the time when he started finding more and more about his grandfather, and as a kid, and now he's 35 and writes about his dad dying, unfortunately. So there you go. Anyway, Have Heart, Songs Stream of the Sun. Check it out.
Yeah, good choice, man. Yeah, the band you haven't talked about, which hadn't come up, which is crazy because I know how big and important they were to you. So
absolutely, 100%. They were my introduction to any kind of real hardcore. 100,000%.
Nice. All right, let's go back to the 70s here. We'll stay in North America, but we'll go with Rush. Fly By Night. This is where Rush became Rush. Neil joined the band. The debut is fine, but I mean, to me, it's Led Zeppelin worship, which isn't a bad thing. They do it well, but like when Neil came to the band, his playing ability, his lyrics, like that's when Rush became Rush. You get the first Rush epic on here, By Tor and the Snow Dog. That's the big epic. It's the first Rush epic song they ever did. And the title track, Fly By Night, still a classic. Everybody knows that one. Anthem, the opener, absolutely stellar track. I think it's just a much more complete album than the debut, top to bottom, and I think Neil puts it way over the top. So definitely not my favorite Rush album. Like if we ever did a ranking, I don't know. It'd probably be like somewhere in the middle to the lower half. But to me, it's such a big dramatic leap from the debut album, and Neil shines, and Neil gets better as it goes. But it had to make the list for that reason. So Rush, Fly By Night, 1975 on Mercury Records. There you go.
There you go. That's awesome. No, yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, it's when Rush kind of carved their sound up, and they carved it in,
for sure,
and they kind of expanded upon that for the next 40 years or 35 years. So pretty crazy. F&A, man. All right. So I got another massive record for me and for this band. I couldn't not. I've talked about this band before quite a bit, but I don't care. I'm making my exception here, and I'll talk about it.
Okay.
So,
right.
For my money, one of the biggest sophomore records of all time. 9 Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral, 1994. Trent obviously came out in Pretty Hate Machine in 89, and it was about 5 years or so for the full length. They put out Broken in 92, so it was obviously a holdover. And they put out Fixed as well, I guess, the EP, the other EP. And so for my money, like I've said before, I think With Teeth my favorite record they ever did. But that's a lot of nostalgia. That's a lot of like my own personal like experiences and memories of the record and everything else. Obviously, I did not know this record existed until much later in life. It was probably middle school, I guess. When I knew a couple of songs, but I didn't know the record really until like middle school, and that's when it really clicked in. And then With Teeth was my first record that I could ever experience as a fan. So as I've gotten older, this is the best record that I think Trent probably made. This is The Fragile, obviously, are the two big ones. I can go back and forth on it, but for my money, this era, it was just so raw. It was still obviously in the throes of being a hype machine, hating it, drinking too much, probably starting drugs at this point as well, and starting hardcore drugs at this point, and just unfortunately falling into that lifestyle. Mr. Self-Destruct kicks it off. Big, massive live staple. One of my favorite songs they do. Piggy, big song. Heresy, a big song. March of the Pigs, closer. That's just the first part of the record. That's all in a row. The first 5 songs. Ruiner, still big. Becoming, still big. Big Man with a Gun. Warm Place, Eraser, Reptile, Downward Spiral, and then obviously closes with probably their biggest song for numerous reasons. There are a couple of reasons, I guess. Hurt. And the big, massive single hit, I guess you could say. I don't think it was necessarily a single. I think that was later on. But obviously, the first, I think the first step towards what the sound was going to be. They still had a lot of electronic vibes, and there still was industrial or what have you, but it wasn't as much as Pretty Hate Machine was. And then, Broken was the bridge. This is the result later on. But massive record, probably the best record he ever did. And I can listen to it any day of the week and not skip a song, because every one of them, for the most part, is so integral to the whole story, the whole record. Like it's crazy. So anyway, 9 Inch Nails, Downward Spiral, sophomore release. There you go. Boom.
Yeah, I think my probably first interaction with that record was like maybe like, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, I think, because I know Josh had that on CD. Throwing this out there too. I know Josh would love to do it. That would be a really interesting ranking for me because
Ooh.
I enjoy Nine Inch Nails quite a bit, but I enjoy what I know. They're
Yes.
never a band I've done a deep dive on, literally
Okay.
ever. And I like a lot of Industrial, Fear Factory. They're way heavier, but they're one of my
Yeah.
favorite bands. And I like a lot of Ministry that I've heard. I like basically everything in Nine Inch Nails. So that would be a really interesting. I know Josh would love to do that too. So maybe this summer when Josh graces us with his presence
Nice.
again on the show, we can work that one in. So
All about it.
Alrighty. Almost done here. I'm gonna go with a little band from California, the Mighty Slayer. Hell Awaits. So good, so raw, dark, just absolutely dark production. It totally fits the record though. I understand maybe if you like the debut more, because this record sounds just so dark and raw and heavy. But it fits. It fits. It's Hell Awaits.
Yeah.
Like it fits the album title. It's heavier than the debut, musically, lyrically, thematically. It shows a great progression of where they were going to go with Rain and Blood, the next record. Hugely influential still to this day. You still hear this album in new albums that drop and new bands that come out. It's just a great record, man. Standouts, the title track, Hell Awaits, opens the record, just a classic. At Dawn They Sleep, another one. Crypts of Eternity is a cool track, too. Yeah. Another really cool thing about this album, if you ever are listening to it, when we do the Slayer ranking, pay attention because it opens and ends the same way, which is really, really cool. So it's like you're entering hell and like it's like closing that chapter. It's really, or that book. It's really, really, really cool. Like you enter the gates and then the gates close behind you.
Yeah.
Like I love that touch to that. And this is the recent reissues they did like 2 years ago, Metal Blade. Shout out to Metal Blade too for keeping these around. I mean, it makes sense because
money.
Money, which a lot of people don't like money apparently, but Metal Blade does. And all these came with posters and shit, so they're really cool.
Oh, hell
I
yeah.
love these inners, like these old Metal Blade inners, really cool looking, and they're poly lined, and then got a split black and orange. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different there's a few different variants, and they did all the Metal Blade stuff, so it's readily available again. And then, man, just look how young they are, dude.
Yeah, they're 24, 25 probably.
Just babies, yeah. And changing music and rewriting history. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean it's the first 31 minutes probably of your walk in hell, right? Just your tour of hell, and then the gates close, like you said. It's yeah, fucking A. Yeah, when we do ranking, I'll be able to check it out more in depth, right?
Yeah.
All right, I got a couple more here, and we can do honorables as well. Or I actually have a couple more honorables. I forgot to.
Cool.
Fill in here. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you can do it at the end.
Yeah. All right. An artist that I have not talked. Oh wait, we might have talked about her just by an associate with something else, but I don't think we've talked about any records possibly of hers. But anyway, one of the biggest records of all time, and one of my favorite records of all time, one Adele with 21. So the first record, 19, very cool. I enjoy 21 obviously a lot more, but Chasing Pavements off 19 was the big single, and you can see where she was kind of going there. And the critics already knew 19 was a big deal for the people that knew, and then 21 obviously blew everybody's expectations away. They never thought it was going to sell 26 million copies or whatever, and it took me a minute. I knew Chasing Pavements because it was on the VH1 countdown shows. I didn't really take notice of it beyond that, but I knew it existed. And then this record, when it came out, I think like it just was everywhere. Like obviously later on, but Rolling in the Deep that was the song forever. And then finally, after like 3 months of Rolling in the Deep being massive, and I heard it in every store in the mall, it was just crazy everywhere. And they finally started cracking into the other singles. Someone Like You, that's the big song, obviously even bigger than Rolling in the Deep for me at least. And Turning Tables, Don't You Remember, Set Fire to the Rain, He Won't Go, Take It All, I'll Be Waiting, One and Only, Love Song cover, and then close with Someone Like You. I can't tell you how much this record means to me to this day. Still means to me in the moment, meant everything to me for that summer and a half or so, but still means a ton to me. I still can't listen to this record all the way through because of the emotions I have wrapped up into it since 2011. That's how deep it got in my psyche. And if you want to dive into our old videos from 10 or 11, 12 years ago, I rank this as my top record of 2011. So you can go check it out, what I said then. But,
wow.
Anyway, 21, Adele, Love It to Death. It deserves to sell 25 million copies, and it did. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely massive record. Massive record.
Squillions.
Yeah, probably. I mean, one of the most interesting stories of probably music in the last 20 years, 15 years. Because, like, kind of, sort of, like you said, he had 19, but kind of just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was just massive. And then, like, it was just everywhere.
19 got a Grammy. So 19 did make it to the people in the know or whatever, right? Yeah. And Chasing Payments was definitely out there as a single, but your sister didn't know that, your mom didn't know that. Yeah. And 21 hits, and Rolling in the Deep hits hard. And then Someone Like You, Set Fire to the Rain, everything just kind of, projected that to the moon and back, and then back again a few times. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah. You have talked about it before. We did Guilty Pleasures. And
okay. Adele, fair, yeah. I guess.
That's like maybe the second episode. Yeah. So check it out.
Love it.
Going with the newest band, probably on either of our lists. Definitely on my list. Their last album, unfortunately. This album came out in 2017, was absolutely massive for the scene, blew it up, had a Grammy nom, stellar record. This is Power Trip with Nightmare Logic. Thrash, crossover, just a pounding record. It sounds really relevant even today, but very nostalgic at the same time, which I love because they take the great riffs, breakdowns of hardcore and thrash and combine it into a new version. But it sounds like something that came out in 1989 or 1990 or something. Really impressive band how they were able to do that. Their first record is good too, but I think this trounces it in almost every way. Like to me, this is the closest anybody has gotten in modern times to capturing like classic Sepultura or Pantera. It's that level of riffing, like just headbanging stuff. It's still stellar. Fortunately, Riley Gale, the lead singer, passed away a few years back, so that put it into Power Trip. I think the guys are doing a different band now under a different name. Yeah, but I'm not 100% on that. I think I've read that before. Standouts for me: Soul Sacrifice, Executioner's Tax, great song. Waiting Around to Die, and If Not Us, Then Who. Just great songs. Unfortunately, I never got to see them live, but great record. Highly suggest it. And these shot up when Riley passed. Like the prices were crazy. Really? Yeah, because I think they were out of print, and then luckily they repressed them. So because I had both of these. I bought these I bought both the records like right when this dropped in 2017. This is like one of the last things I bought before getting out of collecting.
Yeah.
And then sold everything off. And then when I got back into collecting, the price was like, this is like $80. I'm like, geez, I paid like $18 for this, and then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
repressed them, and I was like, okay, thankfully, got it for like $20. So there you
yeah.
go. All their stuff's pretty easily accessible now. So Power Trip with Nightmare Logic from 2017, stellar record of any type of thrash crossover. It's an absolute must listen. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks too because I feel like they were on the cusp of really
Oh
going
yeah.
to that next level, and they were getting
Oh yeah.
featured in things. They were getting spots on in TV shows or wrestling and stuff. Like there was stuff
Mm-hmm.
going on, and then unfortunately the worst had to happen. So
If they
not
could have,
not.
yeah, if they could have got like a Metallica opening slot or something,
Oh wow, yeah,
something like that, which I could see happening.
yeah.
Um, if they would have wanted to do it, I'm sure it would have potentially been offered to them. They would have, yeah, they'd be a very big band right now.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So I have another one that like I have not talked about a lot on the channel. I don't believe, but this is probably neck and neck with my favorite record of his from 2003. Wow. Okay. Well, it's been a while. Make the Clocks Move by Kevin Devine. This is a reimagined artwork, but this is the one I think they put this out, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago for the repress. So it was my favorite Kevin record, I think, neck and neck with Brothers Blood. Kevin Devine is a singer-songwriter out of Brooklyn, New York. He was my first real singer-songwriter I was ever a fan of. I saw him on the brand new tour doing an opening slot, and then I've seen him a million times since. And him and Brand New and Manchester Orchestra, they were kind of the little posse that they were constantly playing together and touring together and all that stuff for a good many years. And Kevin still has a band with Manchester guys called Bad Books. So still a lot of Kevin stuff going on, especially in my life now. But for my money, it's either this or Brothers Blood for the best records. My favorite Kevin song ever is Ball Game. That's a life song for me. I would drive around for hours with women and show them Ball Game, and they would really be really into it and stuff, whatever. And I made some fans, but then some obviously weren't, and so whatever. But it was definitely a song like when you have your iPod plugged in, right, and you're driving around and you're like, oh, and like they want to know your music taste. I put on Ball Game within the first 2 or 3 songs, and like I definitely introduced it with I can listen to this song on repeat for 8 hours. And I definitely said that kind of stuff for sure. And I still love that song. But yeah, so anyway, so Ball Game, Wolf's Mouth, Noose Dressed Like a Necklace, Not Over You Yet is another really cool sing-songy lyrical song. Would recommend that for breakups and stuff, as you might expect. Flatline Blur, People Are So Fickle, Tap Dance, Your Mind Sensitive. A lot of big songs in here for Kevin fans. But if you're into singer-songwriters, protest singers at certain points as well, check out Kevin Devine, Make the Clocks Move, and everything else he's ever done, because it's all really, really good, and he's a cool dude. But there you go. Love it.
You know what you're talking about, that like showing girls that song at Zia today. There was a guy. I don't know if they were on a date or something. Now I like to go to Zia after work, leaving the office, because I'm there at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and I
Yeah.
usually go in the middle of the week. There's usually
Beat the rush.
nobody there. That's why I like to go. And there was a decent amount of people in there, which kind of sucked. But anyways, um, there was a guy there walking this girl around, and they're going through records, right?
Nice.
And I don't know what they were building, like a starter kit or something. I don't know if it was for her or somebody else or something, but it was the most weird conversation I've ever heard, because it was like, yeah, this is Led Zeppelin 4. This is a really classic album. And it was like, yeah, this is the Beatles' White Album. This is what you got to do. And I'm like, I've never had that conversation in my life with literally anybody about
Yeah.
anything, probably.
Yeah.
Like, especially like just like seminal stuff. I always just knew those were big albums, whether I liked them or not is irrelevant. I always just knew about them. So it's really fascinating to listen to. Like, here's like the start of music. Here you go. Work your way through.
You just heard someone's introduction to the Beatles, by the way. You just heard it.
I guess, yeah. I don't know.
That's funny.
Again, I don't know if it was directly for her or they were like building a kit for somebody else or something like this, or like a kid or something. I don't know.
Must
but
have
it was
records.
Like he was also talking about it like she didn't know what it was either. And I'm like, it's really weird when you hear that. And it's like you assume everybody knows what Led Zeppelin 4 is.
Yeah.
But
no, 100%.
Not everybody does.
Because those have been absolutes in our lives since we were little baby kids, right? So like that's always existed, but it's always been available to us, Ty. McDonald's breakfast has always been available to us. You know, but you know, you take it in differently. I mean, I just knew about that stuff. I was from my dad, and you know, if you don't have someone as a little tiny child constantly listening to KSLX and asking you to name the artist, then you maybe just don't pick up on it. And I said every band was Pink Floyd, by the way. Every band.
Yeah.
It could have been Zeppelin. It could have been anything. The Beatles, whatever it was. It could have been Lita Ford, Pink Floyd. And that my dad would be like, no.
I mean, they are very progressive, so.
Yeah, they are very and eclectic at that. And eclectic, you know, they are. But yeah, so anyway, that's fun.
Yeah, it was a fun conversation. All right, let's wrap this up. I got 2 more here. This is probably my favorite record on the list so far. Fear Factory with The Manufacturer. March 3rd, 1995 on Roadrunner Records. This is the Run Out Groove pressing. Really nice. Got a live Ozfest set, which is really cool. And I was listening to it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is Phoenix. So it's the Phoenix state. Because Burton says something, you know, get it going, Phoenix, or something. So I was like, oh, very cool. This is the first Ozfest date in Phoenix ever. It's 96 Ozfest. So it's the first Ozfest.
Okay.
So actually, I think we might have had the first date. You'd have to fact check me on that, but I think we had the first ever Ozfest. That might be the first ever Ozfest date. But anyways, if the Terminator movies were music, it would be this album. Pounding drums, great vocals, heavy riffs, great combo of industrial and death metal, where the first album is really just kind of straight up death metal. They really dove into the more like Nine Inch Nails Ministry type vibe and combined it with their own thing, and they did a good job. They're also really the first band to do harsh and clean vocals, like way before the 2000s metalcore bands. Like Burton does the clean vocals and does the harsh extreme vocals, and a lot of people when this dropped thought that they had 2 vocalists. So that's an interesting aspect, and that was a novel concept in 1995. It's not novel at all anymore. It's overplayed to death, but really cool use of synth too. If you're into synth, this is a cool album. It's an amazing record, one of my all-time favorites. The title track, Zero Signal, Replica, those are probably my standouts. But the whole thing, top to bottom, is just absolutely stellar. Fear Factory with The Manufacturer.
There you go. All right, so from what I can tell on here, like I don't know whatever it means, it looks like the first ever Ozfest gig, as far as I can tell on here, was October 26th of 96. And it was at Glen Helen Blockbuster Pavilion in San Bernardino, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang. And for some reason I thought it was Phoenix. I don't know why I felt that or heard that. Maybe that's Lollapalooza. Maybe we had the first Lollapalooza.
Lollapalooza 100% is here. That's the first one. One is here 100%. Yeah.
Maybe I'm getting it mixed up.
Yeah. Okay, so on that Ozfest though was Ozzy, Danzig, Slayer, Sepultura, Fear Factory, Neurosis, Power Man, Biohazard, Cold Chamber, Earth Crisis, Cellophane, and King Norris. That's a pretty stellar lineup for the most part.
I know 95% of this band, so
yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. F&A girl. Wow. All right.
You got one more or 2 more?
I got two more.
Okay. I got one more, so we're good.
All right. Either way. All right. So another band that I love to death, and I have talked about before, so I guess these are going to be honorables, really, but I can include them. Whatever. I'll do real quick. But a band called
AFI. Because I got one more, and you're going to be at 10.
Okay. Yeah. All right. No worries. All right. AFI. Very proud of you. This is 96 to follow up to Answer That and Stay Fashionable.
Never even seen that before. Interesting.
Really? Okay, fair.
Yeah.
So this is just straight up punk. At this point, it's a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff. This was for a time my favorite AFI record. Like, it wasn't really, but I would say it was. Like, I listened to it a lot more than I listened to like some other stuff at the time. So I remember people would obviously talk about, Sing the Sorrow and talk about December Underground and talk about Our Drowning and things like that, or like Black Sails, even. Like, those are the records. And I would always be like, Very Proud of You is my favorite AFI record. I think I was just talking, really. But I do love this record. I downloaded all these songs off of LimeWire. I didn't get the CD until way later in life. But I downloaded all the songs off LimeWire and different versions of them too, because people posted up the 7-inch versions of songs too, and I was like, I didn't know the difference. Obviously, I had no idea what I was looking at, so I was listening to everything I could, and just punk AFI is fun. Modern Epic, He Who Laughs Last, File 13, Wake Up Call, Cult Status, like all this stuff is just really good. It's just fun. Two of a Kind is a fun song. It's definitely like there's some straight edge stuff on here, so like I was really identifying with that at the time. I was like, oh shit, Davey's talking about being straight edge and not doing drugs, not drinking. This is awesome. I like this a lot. So I think that also played into it. And I would recommend, if you're into AFI and you've not checked out the punk stuff, Very Proud of You is just a fun, fast punk record that you might be into. But also, you should check out every AFI record, and Answer That and Stay Fashionable, the debut. Also a really cool record that's even more tongue-in-cheek than this is. I think this is cleaned up a little bit. Answer That is a much more tongue-in-cheek record than this one is, with different cuts from movies and whatnot inserted in there, little references or what have you. Very fun. So anyway, AFI, Very Proud of You. Love it.
Yeah, I've never even seen it. They're a fascinating band to me just because of the different eras and stuff like that. So we've talked about that and like being the rush of that scene. So
100%. Yeah,
fascinating.
And dedicated cult fans of each era for sure.
Yeah. Alrighty, my last one here. Gonna go with the band. Dropped this in 1989 on Megaforce Records. King's X with Gretchen Goes to Nebraska. Absolutely stellar, fantastic album from top to bottom. Great production, good vocal harmonies between everybody, all the guys. The debut is really good, but like to me, this tops it. Maybe just barely, but this is definitely the better record for me. It's probably their best, honestly, out of all the King's X I've listened to. A lot of people say it's their best too, so I'm not going out on a limb there. It's really good bluesy hard rock. The cool thing about King's X is they all the guys come from a Christian background, so it's got a like gospel influence, soul influence as well, which is a different aspect to their music than any other band in like the prog rock metal scene. I would say, but it's still very proggy though. Good lyrics too. It's got, like I said, it's got a Christian influence, but it's not like overtly preachy. There's songs like questioning like TV evangelists and shit like that. So they're calling out bad aspects of their stuff too. And they're not really Christian anymore. And it's funny, they kind of got lumped in. They got put into a lot of like Christian stores and stuff when they were getting big. Like this record was pretty big, had a lot of MTV play, especially Over My Head, which is like Over My Head is like a very, like, if you want to read in the lyrics, it's a pretty Christian song. So I understand how people were confused with it, but they never wanted to be labeled a Christian band, obviously, because it's going to be a death sentence pretty much commercially. Like, unless you're Creed, I guess. But yeah, so that is an interesting aspect of this band. Like they're coming at it from that kind of realm and mindset. But yeah, they're a fun band, really thought provoking. It's just a great record too, top to bottom. Out of the Silent Planet, the opener is really good. Over My Head and Summerland were the two videos but they're absolutely stellar songs too. So this is an original pressing from '89 on that classic Megaforce label.
That's awesome. Great
record, a great band, a band that I'm slowly getting more and more into. This is by far my favorite record I've listened to them. So yeah, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska by King's X.
There you go. F&A girl. All right, so my last honorable, but like it's a big one, but I've just talked about the band so much, so whatever. Manchester Orchestra, Mean Everything to Nothing. This is probably neck and neck with my favorite Manchester Orchestra record. They're my favorite band of all time, and still a favorite band right now, and still putting out the best records and the best EPs and everything in the business. But this is the Sophomore record. This is the record that's a little bit heavier than what the first one is. I've talked with the band about this record at nauseum, and they've talked about it a lot publicly. And I saw the anniversary tour for it, and just hold it very close to my heart. But they just talk about how Andy talks about when he sang the record, he wanted to be sick as all get out, so that when he sang it, his voice is all raspy and messed up, and he wanted his record to sound like that. I remember there was a lot of like grunge, influence, grunge talk around this record too. He was very into Utero and wanted to make a Pinkerton kind of sounding raw record, and kind of did it. It's the first record they did for Sony canvas back, so with actual money involved, and they put a lot of cool sounds on here. Great songwriting, great guitar work. They have a song called I Can Feel a Hot One, which got placement on I think a couple of the big teen shows at the time. So that song came out and was a hit with the young high school girl audience, because I remember seeing it on the iPod. Every time I looked through a girl's iPod, there'd be one Manchester song on there, and they were not very big. Yeah, they weren't big at the time. That was the one song, because they knew it from Vampire Diaries or one of those things, one of those, whatever. Anyway, so I recommend it if you're into indie, mid 2000s emo-ish kind of, rock and roll, whatever. I'd recommend it. It's a cool record. They're a cool band, and standout tracks for me, if I'm going to do that, Shake It Out, it's a big one. Pride is the massive set opener every night for the most part, and should stay that way forever, but they do change it. But for my money, Pride is the best opener they've ever had. My Friend Marcus is a cool track. Everything to Nothing, big themes throughout the record. I saw the tours for every tour for this record, and everyone was bigger and better than the last, and just cannot say how proud and stoked I am. They are bigger than what they were here. But it's a cool progression, and my favorite record probably is that one. So there we go.
Nice. What year did that come out?
2009.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I saw them. Yeah, 2009. Because I saw them right before the world shut down. It was my last thing I did. The last big show was in November of 19.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
In LA, and then did not do anything through most of December, and then everything kind of started hitting at that point. So yeah, last thing I did.
Okay. Very cool. That was fun. Good list.
Yeah.
Showed some different artists that we normally never talk about. Different records. Yeah. Kind of dove deep into our bag of tricks here. This is pretty cool.
Bag of tricks. That is true.
Yeah. And also this stuff gives me more ammunition for bin or spin. So that's kind of fun.
Ooh. Nice. There you go. Fair
so
enough.
Yeah, you peel a piece of that onion every time. It's like, all right, now I could choose that next time or something, So
yeah, it's in the conversation now. So there you go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, we made it to the end of this. We thank you for joining us tonight. If you made it this far, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below your favorite Sophomore albums. Do you like any of this stuff? Let us know. We would appreciate hearing from you. If you made it to the end, we always choose the topic. Tyler chose tonight's topic, so I'm going to do next week's topic. And this is, I've got two options here. One option I really want to do, but the other option I'm like, I've already done a lot of homework on. So it's like,
sick.
It might be a cheat week, and then Zelda comes out Friday. So like, I'm not going to want to listen to music this week. So I think I'm going to go with my cheat option, but it's also a good option because I really want to do album homework assignment because I want to like pick apart each other's favorite albums and actually have like a debate about each other's listening. And like, if there's nothing to debate, then so be it. But I really want to try to like stretch that and like, why do you like this or what's good about this, stuff like that. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to my cheat option. I'm going to go with your one-hit wonders. Okay, so let me explain this. So the band could have many hits, but you like one song of the band above everything else, and that's usually 99% of the time that's the only song you go to, and you don't dive into anything else.
Yeah.
So just like you were saying about that Manchester song, so like just kind of the same thing with those girls, kind of the same thing. You got that one song by that band that you love, but you never cared to dive or you don't like anything else. So your personal one-hit wonders, they may be one-hit wonders as well. They can be, doesn't matter. But your personal one-hit wonders, those bands, artists, you like one song and that's really it.
Yeah.
Not much else. So
fair enough.
Any questions at all?
No, I think that's a great topic.
Okay.
I like it.
Right.
You did a lot of research on this. So you already have a full list done?
Yes, because all right. I'll spoil it a little bit. I bought this, right? I showed you this, the Spider-Man trilogy. There's a song in Spider-Man 2 that I absolutely love. I don't give a shit about the band, and I don't care about any of the other songs. So that's what triggered this. And then I started like thinking of bands and songs, and I'm like, dude, I have a lot of them. And it was really easy because I would do I'd go to my Spotify year-end playlist because I have them like saved from like 2015 on.
Yeah.
So I would just go back through and like songs that would make it. And I'm like, dude, I haven't listened to this band since then. And like, yep, that's it. That's definitely on there. So it's, right. I pretty much have the list done. So kind of cheating there, but I got a big weekend and week ahead of me with Zelda. So anyways, guys, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. And we will see you next time on the Living Deadwax podcast. Peace.